All right, so for the second straight week in a row, we've seen improvement from the Oklahoma offense. But Oklahoma comes out here and they do what they should have done, and they dominate Maine 59 to 14. But in doing so, I think they found something that maybe they can continue to build upon and even go into the rest of the season. Maybe try to get bowl eligible, maybe try to squeak out 2 wins. I want to talk about Oklahoma's dominating 59 to 14 win today. So, as always, I want to hear from y'all. Make sure you guys are joining the discussion, jumping down in the comments below. As always, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, especially if you're new. I have diapers I got to pay for, and you guys don't realize how much liking and subscribing to the videos actually helps me out. So, all right, Oklahoma's 59 to 14 win over Maine. You did what you were supposed to do. Should we be impressed? No. Are we impressed? Yes, because your offense came out there and outside of the first drive of the game looked pretty competent. And you were building off of the first half of the Ole Miss game where Oklahoma's offense looked like they could compete at that point, right? We looked at that offense and said, where has this been all year? And I think the biggest telling point of the game yesterday was 665 total yards from the Oklahoma offense. They didn't do that against Temple. Now, I was talking to one of the guys that I sit next to every week in the stadium, and we were talking about that, and he's like, I wish Oklahoma could have did this against Temple. And I said, well, the issue is Oklahoma got 6 forced turnovers against Temple. And so it put the offense in short-fielded situations, and so it was hard to rack up a ton of yards, right? Now, again, we saw things in the Temple game that should have been concerning. But you get here to Maine, and you're like, I feel good about what I saw. Like, you went 10 of 14 on third downs. You went 2-2 on fourth downs. You didn't allow a single sack on offense. Like, that has been the biggest pain point. So, let's get into some of the things that Oklahoma found in this game that they can build upon, especially going into playing Missouri at Columbia, where they're not very good. And I've got a couple things here that we got to talk about. And the first thing is, in the pod, like in the pregame pod, we talked about Oklahoma needing to run the ball. Oklahoma needs to run the ball well. And I thought it was going to be because it was going to rain. And then the times got changed, right? It went from 1:30 to 11 o'clock. And so obviously I recorded that video before those time change happened. So I was thinking, hey, like it's going to be raining. Like you're going to have to run the ball a lot. And maybe that's a good thing because I always allude to this. When you watch the Kansas City Chiefs, right? When they struggle in the pass game, what does Andy Reid always go to? Jump in the comments and let me know. Andy Reid always goes to running the ball. He always tries running the ball up the middle, taking it on the sides, trying to play a ground and pound game. And that's exactly what Oklahoma did today. And I asked Popo in our chat earlier, and I said, when was the last time Oklahoma had a guy rush for as many yards as Javonte Barnes rushed for and rush for almost dang near 400 yards in a game? Got to go all the way back to 2015 Texas Tech. Like, it's been a while. And Javonte Barnes, 203 yards in this game, 3 touchdowns, 11.3 yards average. He only did on 18 carries. Javonte Barnes was balling out. And this was easily his best game of the season. Now, the reason why I say this is something you can build upon, even though it's against Maine, running for 200 yards on any team is difficult. But we've also seen Javonte Barnes have little slivers of success all season long. So that's why we've kind of been able to tell you Javonte Barnes is the best back in this room right now. And he should 100% be running back 1. But with Javonte Barnes having a big weekend like this and having so much success running what you did with Barnes, you have to continue to build on that, right? But then you can turn to some of the other running backs in this room. Like Taylor Tatum had 10 carries for 48 yards and 1 touchdown. You are really starting to see Taylor Tatum come into what we all thought he was going to be. Number 1 running back in the country out of high school. We expected him to come in and bring that speed and that elusiveness. in right away and make a difference. And you're starting to see him really kind of put it together if you're Oklahoma, and you feel good about that. And then at the end of the game, you saw Xavier Robinson come in, another true freshman dude right here out of Oklahoma City, out of Carl Albert High School. I think he's originally from Mustang. 1 touchdown, 6 carries, 29 yards. When you look at Xavier Robinson, this is a guy that reminds you of kind of like a build, like a, I'm not going to say 100% like Derrick Henry, but similar type in the way they're going to use him. Same thing for Josh Jacobs, like, two guys at Alabama that were really good. That's what I can see Xavier Robinson kind of being for Oklahoma. And if that's all he is, that's really damn good. And Xavier Robinson has proven in other games that he's been able to catch the ball in the backfield. So I look at it and say the running game is the number one thing that I take away from this game that Oklahoma can build upon from the offense. But I also look at the offensive line. And this is where maybe we're going to start getting into some numbers here, looking at snap counts and saying, all right, well, who played the best? Because, Logan Howland, Heath Ozida, Troy Everett, Spencer Brown, Fabichi Wewu, these guys were starting the game. And, I think a lot of people are tired of seeing Logan Howland because, they think he's bad, which he's not. He's a redshirt freshman who's really only in his second or third year playing offensive line. Like, he's a total project dude that has tremendous upside. And in the pass block grade, 87.3. Now, for any of these starters, you should have been at 85 or higher. So Heath Ozida, 85.8. He played 72 snaps. Logan Howland played 80. Spencer Brown, a guy that everybody dogged on, thought wasn't a very good player, 82.9 on the pass block grade. Troy Everett, 49.8. But, Troy Everett's best center, and I don't think it's any doubt, right? Didn't have the greatest game today, but no doubt in my mind, he's your best player or your best center. Fabichi Wewu, 75.4. So your starting offensive line played pretty well. This is where you've got to pay attention to. This is where you have to pay attention to how did the offensive line do. And I'm going to sort out by best pass block grades. You've got Spencer Brown, Heath Ozida, Logan Howland, Heath Ozida, Spencer Brown, 1 through 3. 87, 85, 82. Then you start to get into young offensive linemen. And we knew we were going to see a little bit of youth movement. Eddie Pierre-Louis, the guy everybody wanted to see. Got to see him for 37 snaps this week. And he had that one penalty that, kind of you go like, you're either really excited about it, you're like, dude, come on, right? 81.3 pass block grade. Like, Eddie Pierre-Louis was, when you watch the field, he was moving dudes. And you see the strength. You see the athleticism from him. We talked about potential offensive line looks for the 2025 season. I said left guard is kind of your position that's up in the air right now. EPL is going to contend for that left guard position. He's going to contend with Heath Ozida for that left guard position. Then you look at Isaiah Autry-Dent. This is a guy that I told you I was really excited for. I think he's like 6'7", 6'8", like 330 pounds. Like, this dude's massive, right? 77.8 on the pass block grade. Played total 26 snaps. He played left guard, it looks like, mostly. But, shit, I'll take it at this point. Isaiah Autry-Dent's going to be probably a tackle at Oklahoma. This dude's going to be special, guys. Really special. You look at Daniel Akinkumi. So glad to see he got out there. 8 snaps, 73.5. I bring all this up, and I bring the pass block grades up to you guys and what these offensive linemen did because I think it's important to understand what Oklahoma has in the youth, right? I think it's really important to understand that although the offensive line hasn't played well this year, like, at times you saw it this week. There were mistakes to be made from those true freshmen, but they're flashing that maybe next year they're going to be ready to go to start competing at every single one of these positions. But you also, as an Oklahoma fan, have to look at it and say, we're returning a lot of guys that are projected to be starters if they wouldn't have been hurt this year, right? They should have been full-time starters. Taylor, Sexton, right? You're going to be returning a lot of those guys. So I look up and down the board and I say, the future's bright at offensive line. And, we talked about, should Oklahoma move on from Bill Bedenbaugh? Like, I don't think Oklahoma should completely move on from him. If you want to get a new look, then you move him to an analyst role. You keep him on your staff. But at this point in time, I feel like Oklahoma fans after this game should feel good about the offensive line in the future and where it's heading. Because the young guys came in and, my opinion, they came out there and did what they're supposed to, right? They moved guys around. They kept the pocket pretty well clean. I mean, a lot of that comes into Jackson Arnold also being very aware of when he needed to leave the pocket and get back to the line of scrimmage or throw the ball away, which is another really good thing you want to see from Jackson Arnold. But an Oklahoma fan should feel good about this. Now, one of the other things that I looked at on offense and I said, okay, if we can do this again, Oklahoma's going to do pretty well. And that is, you got to look at some of these receivers. You finally started to see some of these receivers create separation. Now, J.J. Hester had the biggest pass of the day. He had 90-yard receiving catch for a touchdown. And it, from what I heard, was the longest touchdown pass in OU history, which actually kind of shocks me. I would have thought that somebody else would have held that record. Like, shoot, even a Baker or Kyler, I would have thought held that record. But no, Jackson Arnold and J.J. Hester are now going to hold that record. And he had 112 yards, so I think he is now Oklahoma's leading wide receiver in terms of reception yards. I think Bauer Sharp is still a little bit ahead of him, but J.J. Hester surpasses Deion Burks. Finally, a wide receiver does it. One of the things that I think if you're Oklahoma that you found in this game with your wide receivers that you need to build on, you need to take into next weekend, is one, all these wide receivers got quite a few targets. Then they caught the ball, right? They started to create that separation. And with a clean pocket, you're going to see these wide receivers start to create that separation from those corners. So I feel really good about what we saw total in offense. Now, again, it's Maine, so trying to act like this was the biggest win ever, we can take a ton from it. Not necessarily, but there are little things that we saw, like what I pointed out, that if Oklahoma just takes that to the next week and continues to build on it, that's something that I think going into next season, or even just going into the rest of the season, could be beneficial for Oklahoma and get them bowl eligible, right? Get you some confidence going into next season. That's what Oklahoma needs. So 59-14 win. Offense looked really good. Now, turning to the defense, they did less than stellar, right? You probably give the defense a B+ performance. I'd say you give the offense an A. And the reason why I give the defense a B+ is because they came out of the game and they looked lackadaisical, if that's a word, right? They looked like they had just rolled out of bed. You let Maine march down the field and score, and, I heard a lot of OU fans kind of just start to do that, like, oh, man, here we go, right? Like, this is rock bottom. Saw it all over Facebook, too. And the defense comes back out on the second drive and beyond, and they sharpen up. Now, you see 14 points, and you're like, well, hold on. So they obviously allowed another touchdown. Yes, but you got to remember that last touchdown came at the end of the game, garbage time, with an entire defensive freshman, whether they were true freshmen or redshirt freshmen. So you were playing all young guys. What'd you expect? For them not to make any mistakes and to go out there and stop them? Come on. Really? Like, that's an unrealistic expectation. But overall, the defense played pretty well. Danny Stutzman was your leading tackler with 6 total tackles. Jaron Kanak, a guy that we really have not talked about a whole lot this year, second on the team this week in total tackles, 5. You had Billy Bowman with 4. Devon Sears had 3 total tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. Guys, I tried to tell y'all about Devon Sears in the spring going into the summer. I'm not sure why he hasn't gotten more run, but you saw a lot of really good things from Michael Boganowski and Reggie Spears and Jaden Hardy. Those are 3 safeties that I think we feel really, really, really good about. You saw Jacoby Johnson and Eli Bowen start the game at corners, which I know it's an unpopular opinion to maybe bench Woody and Kanai, but I feel like you have to bench Woody and Kanai and play Jacoby and Eli Bowen. They're both absolute athletic freaks. And Eli Bowen is a lockdown corner. Jacoby Johnson still, I think, has a little bit to learn, especially with technique. But he didn't look as bad as Kanai Walker did. And even on a day like today where you felt like Kanai Walker should have dominated against Maine, didn't look very good, right? So looking at what the defense can build on, right? I think you got to look at some of these younger guys and say, especially at corner, where I think it's been probably your biggest struggle of the season. You get 7 pass breakups in this game, and you need to look at Jacoby Johnson and Eli Bowen as potentially being guys that are going to get significant rotational minutes for you. I think that's what you got to have, because going into next season, this defense is going to be really good. This defense might be better next year than it is this year. That's how good some of these players are in that room. That's how much I believe in what BV's doing with this defense. And that's why, we've said if you can just pair this defense with a subpar offense, you're probably in the playoffs this year, right? You're probably competing in the SEC. You get an offense like you had with Jeff Lebby when he was here. My God, you're looking at a freaking team that can compete for a national championship. That's what we're talking about. So I think there's a couple things you can take away from this Oklahoma-Maine game, 59-14 win. Again, if you're an Oklahoma fan, I think you're confident over some of the things you saw on offense. It's things that you can take into Missouri. You've got to run the ball. Running the ball has been your strong suit on offense. That needs to be your identity. Because when you run the ball well, as we saw in this game, it opens things up in the pass game because they have to respect running the ball every single down. So, guys, if you guys have made it this far, make sure you guys jump in the comments, join the discussion. Let me know what you guys think. And if you guys have not already, make sure you guys hit that like, hit the subscribe button. If you guys are listening to this on Apple, Google, Spotify, make sure you give me 5 stars, leave me a review, share with a friend. But until next week, Boomer.